Hello and welcome to another edition of our Alumni Masterclass. Good day to everyone and thank you for joining in. Of course, it's a great pleasure of ours to welcome Marielle El Chamieh, who is going to present the masterclass Beyond Aesthetics. Marielle is one of our alumni and she will today share with us a bit of her professional experience that is illustrative of how contemporary design is increasingly, and especially in in this time of AI, is increasingly operating across disciplinary boundaries. So the fundamentals of design, how they are important towards connecting, various fields of design, for instance, interior design, branding, creative direction. um, there are some things which I think Marielle will also talk about, for instance, storytelling, digital experiences, systemic and strategic thinking. I think it's going to be a very interesting session. And please feel free to keep asking your questions in the chat. And when we have the question answer session, we will get back to those queries. So, without further ado, Marielle, over to you.
Okay, so hello everyone. Hope all is good. So I'm Marielle. I'm the founder and creative director of Cell Eter, and I'm an interior architect and multidisciplinary design specialist, as well as an LSTM alumni. So today's masterclass is entitled, as Professor Abhishek mentions, Beyond Aesthetics, and we're going to be talking about designing across disciplines. So first of all, design today is no longer confined to one discipline. And let's see why and how. So, today, creative careers are becoming increasingly multidisciplinary. So, designers are no longer limited to one role or one industry. And we're going to see it during the presentation. The boundaries between the spaces, branding, digital experiences, fashion, storytelling, and strategy are continuously overlapping. And throughout this masterclass, I want to share how design can evolve beyond aesthetics into a broader creative practice shaped by experience, storytelling, and strategic thinking. So, the evolution of design. When most people think about design, they usually imagine like one discipline, for example, interior architecture, graphic design, fashion, or branding as separate words. So over time, design evolved in a way that it became beyond fixed categories. So what started for me in interior architecture slowly expanded into branding, visual storytelling, creative direction, digital experiences, even content creation, brand strategy. And the more projects I developed, the more I realized something that these fields are no longer isolated from one another. Like today, design is less about choosing like one discipline and more about understanding the overall how different disciplines can connect to create this experience. Now comes the question, what design education really taught me? So, one of the biggest misconceptions about design education is that it only teaches technical skills, because design education builds even more than a profession. It really builds a way of thinking. Beyond software, rendering, visuals, anything, it teaches you how to develop your concepts, communicate your idea, solve problems, build narratives, which is very important and essential, and even think strategically. And those skills become transferable across industries. They don't come out of the blue, they are built with time with you. And that's what allowed me to move between different creative fields without starting from zero every time. Because who even wants to start from zero every time if anyone wants to move forward in life and is in the creative world. So first, interiors and branding may seem like complete different industries, but one shape physical spaces, while the other shapes perception and identity, which is very similar and tricky. But when you dive deep within both, you realize they actually rely on many of the same principles, and both are centered around emotion, perception, storytelling, look and feel, materials, moods, and user experience, which is essential. So, for example, let's take a look at the design I did on the left, the interiors. Colors, creative direction, materials, lighting, composition, all of these shape how a person can feel within the space. Whereas on the right, in branding, visuals, storytelling, colors, even the creative direction also shape how a person emotionally connects with the brand. So here the discipline changed, but the design thinking remained the same. So this shift is what created the rise of multidisciplinary creatives and the creative direction as a whole. So coming from an interior architecture background myself, the evolution completely changed the way design was approached professionally. And let me tell you something. At first, interior architecture seemed to me that it was very focused on spatial design only. But over time, I discovered something. It became clear to me that design, as is, design education, taught me much more than creating spaces. And actually, spaces and brand do speak the same language because it teaches how to develop concepts, how to think critically, how to communicate visually, and even how to create experiences with intention. Let's take an example. For example, you see this coffee shop on the right, the green one. I designed it. It was a coffee shop inspired by the moss that grows on trees, you know? So I wanted to create this experience of the five senses in the 5D. So the main color was the green, which came from the moss as is. But the design was organic, inspired by the nature. There's if anyone wants to design something, if a designer wants to design something, the first thing to look out for when designing a coffee shop, F&B, a hotel, anything commercial, really, the first thing that they should look at is the branding, the visuals, the moods, the background, the history behind it, the storytelling, because if the design doesn't match with the content, it's gonna flop because everything needs to be interconnected. So that was a small example for you to be able to understand the connection between space and brand and the language between them. So for example, the same thinking process used in interior also was applied in branding, in fashion, in creative direction, and in identity building. It's a whole process. It's the same strategy. You just switch from topic to another. And this is what slowly shifted my career path, actually, from designing spaces only toward designing broader creative um, experiences and identities, especially with the MA in design that I did with LSTM in collaboration with UCA, because honestly, this master opened up so many doors and so many opportunities for me to expand, even though on a personal level. So it was very fruitful and I didn't expect it at all. So whether designing a space or a brand, the objective remained the same and it's very similar because creating a strong identity and a memorable experience, this is the same goal for the branding and for the interior. So in both cases, design becomes a tool for creating this identity. And later on, this is the mindset that became the foundation behind building Cell Eter, and I'm going to show you how and why. So over time, the focus started shifting beyond physical spaces alone. So what became more interesting for me was how identity, emotion, moods, storytelling could exist not only within the interiors themselves, like I was used to, but also within the brands. So the transition that I had toward branding and creative direction really happened very naturally because many of the same design principles that I had learned still applied. For example, Sal Eter became a project where different creative disciplines started merging together. It was no longer only about fashion or visuals, but more about building an identity, an experience through storytelling, branding, creative direction, materials, content, emotional strategy. So this project became an exploration of how design can move across disciplines while still remaining cohesive. The goal was never to create something that was simply visually appealing. My goal for the brand was to build a brand people could connect with emotionally. Rather than focusing on materialistic things, products, the focus was more on creating a complete world revolving around the brands through storytelling, moods, creative direction, experience. So every decision that I took, from branding to visual to material, campaigns, digital presence, had to communicate the same identity that was intended for Cell Eter. And this is where strategic thinking really becomes just as important as design itself. Because one of the most rewarding aspects of this journey was realizing how many of the skills developed through my interior architecture career and after that in my MA in design could be applied across different creative disciplines. So, the creative process. The project moved through multiple creative layers before becoming an actual brand experience. It involved production, material exploration, packaging, design, production, designing, sampling, concept development, creative direction, campaign development, branding, digital identity. I even started doing the website myself, but I didn't have enough time to finish it because I was handling everything else. So I gave it to someone to continue. But really, every stage contributed to building a cohesive visual and an actual emotional language across both the physical and digital experience. Building a brand beyond the visuals, because basically, a brand is not only the visuals. It's not a logo, a color palette, or a photo shoot. A brand is who it serves, why it exists, who it is perceived, the experience it creates, what makes it different, who is it created for? Because your business model, everything should revolve around it. Because you need to know how does this idea become sustainable and viable. You have the experience. How do people interact with this brand? The identity. How should it be perceived? Your positioning. What makes it different? Your audience. Who is it created for? What's your target audience? Your vision. Why does this brand even exist? What's your added value to this community? Because, of course, there's a lot of businesses other than you. So, one of the most valuable things I learned is that designers should not wait to be invited to business conversations. I never was in a business conversation to begin with, but I did my research. I worked a lot on myself and I learned a lot of stuff. So, understanding strategy, positioning, audience, and business models allows the designer to create stronger and more impactful work. This is how projects are built, not like let's create a logo and get some product and just throw them in the um, on some social media page and just start. It doesn't work like this. For growth, it doesn't. So instead, research comes first, then strategy, and then comes design. Because at first, you need to do your market research. You need to specify your audience, and then you have to position yourself. You need to specify your vision and then start creating your brand identity. You need to work on your visuals, on your storytelling, because this is what's gonna sell actually. Then comes your product or service. You need to develop it and you need to produce it. You need to do your sampling. You need to approve it and then start your production. After this comes your content and marketing strategy. You need to start working on your campaigns and to focus on your digital presence. What's your strategy about this? And last but not least, which is very important, your launch and your growth strategy, because launching is something and your strategy is something completely different. Because whenever you launch, be ready to collect feedback and to adapt. Adaptation is not the easiest, neither feedback, because you might hear the good and the bad, and you have to be ready for both. And you have to be ready to modify and adjust and make the product better if you get any bad comment. And actually, they are right about their comments. So it's a whole new process. So it is really identity really translates exactly your strategy into a visual language. So your execution brings the idea into reality through your product, your content, the experience, your communication strategy that you're going for. So growth comes through testing, through feedback, and continuous refinements. You never stop. It never stops. You always have to keep on moving forward and adapting. So, building a brand, I'm going to give you some tools that help designers think strategically to be able to build this whole structure. So, one of the biggest misconceptions about designers is that they only create visuals. In reality, many designs decisions are informed by research, by customer behavior, by positioning, and business strategy. For example, during the development of Cell Eter, customer profiling and brand positioning helped define the identity and audience. These are very essential for brand building because at first you need to specify your customer persona. You need to understand your target audience. You need to map your customer journey. You need to know which lifestyle they have, what do they do, for example, what are their hobbies. This way, you can get to understand them better to be able to get to them better. So also, the SWOT analysis is something very essential because you need to understand your opportunities, you need to understand your strengths and weaknesses. Um, Everything related to the brand becomes more clear to you, especially even when you do your business model, because this removes the veil of everything for you to be able to see clearly and decide how you are gonna be heading, and as well as the brand positioning, which is very essential to structure your business. So during the development of Cell Eter, tools like these helped me a lot to transform my creative ideas into actionable decisions. And one of the biggest misconceptions about design is that it actually begins with aesthetic, which is not correct because in reality, the design decisions become stronger when they are supported by audience understanding, strategy, positioning, business analysis, and business objectives. So the strongest brands succeed because they balance between the creative and business thinking to create this brand value that they are providing for their customers. Let's talk a bit about the creative direction and storytelling behind Cell Eter. So, creative direction usually is the bridge between strategy and visuals. So, it translates a brand's identity into images, campaigns, content, and experiences. So every visual decision should reinforce the same narrative and emotional message. It goes back to the same concept that everything should remain cohesive and should go all together one way through one goal. It ensures consistency across every touch point, allowing the audience to recognize, understand, and connect with the brand. And I'm going to show you how we were able to connect with our customers. So people rarely remember products alone. They connect with stories, emotions, and experiences. People are emotional as as a humans. So they remember how a brand made them feel even long before they remember a specific product. Okay? So creative direction can help a lot translate a brand strategy into something people can feel and can remember. So that's why strategy and storytelling helps transform a product into an experience. And this experience into a lasting connection with the customer. So, through images, styling, moods, content, storytelling, brands create emotional connections that go beyond functionality or product. So, the customer connects with you and just stick to it. He's a loyal customer and he's going all the way with you. And you can see that with time. So, design and storytelling really do become meaningful when they create genuine connections with people. Like beyond products and visuals, one of the most rewarding aspects of building Cell Eter was seeing how the audience responded to the brand and connected with the identity. I shared with you here some of the interaction, and this became a reminder that really successful brands are not only built through design decision, but through the relationship and communities they create over time. And this is what we did in building Cell Eter. And more than customer feedback, it was also interesting to observe how the audience interacted with the brand digitally through content, storytelling, and consistent branding. The project was able to generate strong engagement, profile visits, and audience interest. And let me tell you, the brand um, is less than a year. It's like 11 months, something like that. It's going to be 1 year in July in 17 when we launched our first collection. For example, I'm going to give you some numbers. During our first launch, the content generated 50K views, okay? While when we did our second launch, we scaled up to 80K. And now we're at 130K in the past 30 days only. While numbering alone don't define a brand's success or value, they can provide valuable insights into how people discover, engage, and respond to a brand. And from the feedback that we got, it's amazing, the results. So, to go back to our design topic, the outputs may look different, but the same design principles drive all of them. Understanding people, solving problems, communicating ideas, and creating meaningful experiences. Once design is understood as a system rather than a single discipline, it becomes easier to move across industries, adapt to new opportunities, and build multidisciplinary careers. So, different outputs, shared design thinking. Now, the reality of creative careers. I'm going to give you, from my background, what I was able to gather for actual the reality of the creative careers. So first, your skills will most probably evolve faster than your job title, which is sadly true, but sometimes building your own opportunities is often part of your journey. And your creativity alone is not enough. Even though you're very creative, I'm creative myself. And sometimes you have to adapt and you have to push forward every time, as well as the industry will reward your adaptability with time. And some lessons learned was that your curiosity will create for you a lot of opportunities, which happened with me. And your design is a way of thinking, but not a job title. Don't put yourself in a box. No one can put you in a box. Just always push boundaries and never settle. And always remember that strategy strengthens creativity. Don't just be creative and just keep on drawing and doing creative stuff. Use it wisely and be strategic about it. And in my opinion, the future designer would actually, after this presentation, think more strategically, work across disciplines, use AI intelligently, because I even started using AI. It's helpful, it's fast, but you have to use it wisely. Because, for example, in interior, I can design my my whole 3D, my whole render done, and I just can put it on AI and tell them make it realistic. But the thing is that I put my own materials, I design my design, and I put my own furniture and everything revolving around it. So it's just a tool to make it seem nicer, to not lose a lot of hours, for example, on 3ds Max. And create meaningful experiences during the process, because this is what it's for, just passion purely. And thank you so much for being part of this masterclass. Design is not limited by discipline. Remember that only by how far you're willing to explore it. Thank you so much. And thank you a lot, the professor and our manager. Thanks a lot for the opportunity.
Thank you, Marielle. Such an insightful presentation. So many interesting points raised. Thank you for sharing your own journey. Of course, it has come with its fair share of challenges, but given your approach, I think I'm sure and that you're handling these challenges extremely well. There is a lot to unpack from your presentation, which is usually the case in such masterclasses. But in this particular case, I think it's also providing a vision, uh, which is very important for students, for people who are going to be in more ways than one future makers. So. In this sequence, in this regard, thank you so much for your insights. Well, one of the things before we get to the audience and their questions and their queries and their observations, I think is to discuss or to think about this concept of experience. And it's very interesting that you mention experience as being such an important part of your approach and your methodology, because I think that in more ways than one, our field follows economic paradigms. So, for instance, from product to service to now experience. So usually in the 90s, in the 80s, and all the decades before that, we used to have product-based economies. We used to create products. Then we had service-based economies. We created services, especially online. We created banking, Uber. All these are products of service-based economy. And now it's the time of experience economy. That's why people are shelling out so much money for gastronomic experiences, for interior design, and many other such contexts. So you're spot on when you're saying that experience is something which is the the latest driver, let's say, for innovation in our field. One more thing I think which you um, put emphasis on, and I would like to uh, understand your perspective on this, is um, how specializations in our field are giving way to more multidisciplinarity, which, in terms of human resource development, is called going from E-shaped skills sorry, from L-shaped skills to E-shaped skills. So you are specialized in multiple departments, and your work shows that.
Yes, exactly, Professor, and thank you so much for everything that you mentioned. Really, honestly, from a personal point of view, I'm so grateful that I did the second master because without it, um, maybe I wouldn't have all this knowledge that I have now. So it opens exactly many doors for me, and um, after this whole experience, I can tell 100% that I would for sure uh, tell to every designer that whenever they feel like something might call them to learn even more about a specific topic that they are interested in and that they like and would love to develop, I would tell them go all in because this is what made me now a multidisciplinary designer, and what really gave me the backup to be able to build this brand and to keep on going forward and to actually know what I'm doing, because everything related to the branding, to the website design, everything to the social, to the socials, creative direction, um, everything, brand strategy, business plan, all of it, I did it myself because of this master that I did with LSTM. So really, it's no joke. It's very important and essential to go after whatever thing you feel like. It's essential, honestly.
I think you touched upon two very interesting points. The first being the importance of knowing, and the second being curiosity. Sometimes what happens is when we are in a hectic environment or a stressful environment, curiosity usually gives way to survival.
Yeah, exactly.
How did you maintain your curiosity? How do you maintain your curiosity to learn more?
I was always someone curious. I used to always like search for things. And I had the idea of the brand since I was at university. In my first year in my bachelor in interior, I already had the idea and I was secretly working on it and doing all of my research. So it was somehow below the table and I was working silently on it. So when I did my second master, um, I intended to do it actually. It wasn't like, let's do a second master. Like, no, I honestly, I had a lot on my plate. I was working full time. I didn't really have time for anything else. But I had this dream that I had since I was little, and I wanted to learn because some of the things that we learned during this master, I learned them through my researches on internet. So I still had it in my head that I wanted to learn more about it. So that's what I did. I entered this master and I graduated from it, and everything I learned, I put it in this project.
Great. And I think curiosity in this case, I think, translates to the intention to learn more, to know more. And somewhere or the other, it's mixed a bit with wonder, with the sense of wonder, right? Um, when you were when you were looking to learn more, as you just said, when you were looking to be more knowledgeable, were you focusing on a certain field or certain area of knowledge, or were you just letting yourself absorb any and every knowledge that you could access? This is very important. I'm asking because that is what is reflected from, for instance, some of the images which you have shown regarding storytelling, especially the storytelling of your brand. Uh, unless you know about the context and unless you know about a lifestyle, for instance, the bottles inside the basket, one of the images showed that unless you know about these details, how can you include them in? And that's of course also true for interior design. You need to know a lot about a lot of things rather than just one thing for you to be able to um, replicate your skills across different contexts, isn't it?
Exactly. And honestly, I was like a sponge during this master. I was learning everything, I was absorbing everything. And after I finished my master, I even worked I did some website design as well. Um, I worked in it. I had it as a freelance thing. So really, it wasn't something specific. I was just I was able and I was accepting to learn, which is the most important part. I wanted it and I focused a lot during this phase. So I think this is what brought up this final result. And as you were mentioning about applying everything that we learned through this project, um, really it was a lot of work. Actually, the brand was the first launch, which was the hardest, was done in only 2 months. It was very tight. I even did the production during these 2 months. The packaging design, I did it myself. I was following up everything. It was hectic. It was so nice. I loved every part of it, and I was so excited about it. I'm just proud, honestly.
Yeah, but also there are a lot of things, which you may not be mentioning, but of course, the flexibility to adapt is, I think, one of them, because if you're having a short deadline, such as 2 months, you need to be very flexible in terms of
Yeah.
your mindset to be able to pull something like that off. Um,
Yes.
I have one request and I have one observation before I
Okay.
pass to the audience. Um, my request is, can you tell us a bit about your approach to storytelling? What is your personal approach to storytelling? For instance, if you're supposed to create the moss and milk, which you gave us a bit of indication about, but if you were to create something completely different in a completely different context, what would your approach to storytelling be?
Okay. So, moss and milk, you know, the moss is it's not flat. It have like its bumpiness, let's say. Okay. So what I did was I got creative, honestly, with the design. I started like instead of putting normal lighting, I created this circular shapes that were coming from the ceiling as in terms of the moss itself because it's not flat. So I designed it in a very modern way and interesting way because this is what's gonna be calling the customer from the outside because it's gonna show from the outside. So as in terms of materials, I used natural materials inspired by nature. The color palette green was inspired by the moss itself, and milk, which is colored white, I used it as well as in the interior. And I put some greenery inside to create this really natural feel, but at the same time, modern and out of the normal type of interior. And whereas I'm gonna give you an example from the brands, Sel et Terre is French names. So sel, which is salt, and terre, which is the land. and it's inspired by the Mediterranean spirit. So, the Mediterranean is not only one country, it's a lot of countries together, combined. So, there's a lot of culture there. And I love this culture, honestly. I love these things. So, I got inspired by them. The first collection that I launched was called Rivage. I called it that way because I wanted to create this whole concept of like the person traveling. If you see on the Instagram page, how I started launching Rivage, you can see that I created this storytelling of the tickets of the plane where you're gonna land somewhere at Rivage, let's say, and whenever you land, you start seeing the pictures of the modeling in this bohemian next to the sea type of style of resort next to the sea. So it was this vibe, and this is what I intended, and that's why I called it Rivage. And our next launch, the winter collection, which was a bit the opposite of the first. I also intended it to be like that because I wanted it to continue this topic of traveling. So I took it and I put it in a hotel. I wanted it to be in a hotel, especially because it's like I gave it this Gossip Girl vibe where it's like there's some action, there's some confidence showing. Um, the burgundy colors, and you can see it from the title Grand Affair. So there's this big affair, the concept going all around the shoot, and it's all about this, really, the storytelling, how you translate it to the customer is very interesting, because every creative have his own point of view and have his own vision about it. For example, I had these visions, maybe someone else who would have had the opportunity to do, for example, the same project would have had another concept completely.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think it just emphasizes the importance of process in your approach. And I'm a firm believer that beautiful processes create beautiful products. And at the same time, the feedback which we receive on our products, um, it should not, in a way, be taken personally, and I think that's very important part of this entire thing. And feedback of a product, it could be something which you've designed, it could be a service, it could be a space, it could be any concept, acts as validation, or it acts as an opportunity for us to improve the process. Um,
Exactly.
it's an ongoing thing, and I think that's something which is coming across from what you're saying. And what I really like about your project is that when you were faced with a context, I think it was very important for you to take a step back to to understand the context in which you were going to place yourself or apply your skills, to look at the nuances, to look at the textures, for instance, as you mentioned, to absorb it, to find relevant knowledge, and based on that, only advance with your creativity. So, compliments on your achievements till now, and
Thank you.
I think the brand name is a winner, Celite. It has a very nice ring to it,
Thank you.
and I see it going a long way. So,
Thank you very much.
saying that, let me throw the floor open to our audience. If any of the participants have any questions, or if any of the participants have any observations.
Well, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I was just curious, and congratulations for the presentation, obviously, and for
Thank
sharing
you.
your journey, your processes, and a little bit of your life during the last months and years. I was just wondering, because you talked a lot also about feedback and the importance of feedback, and how you need to adjust sometimes from launching to keeping the the business going, which is something that, as you know, in at LSTM we also try to make it quite often, to listen to our students, to listen to our community, and to make adjustments and improvements. So I was wondering, what processes, what methodologies or tools are you using, and what is the impact of that feedback, in if there was any impact so far, and if you changed something based on that feedback. Uh, that's for one hand, and for the other hand, one of the difficulties is keeping a community engaged. So how are the also the strategies that you are putting in place to have your community engaged with you and with your brand? Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks a lot for the questions. Okay, so for the first question, actually, um, really, it's more about like um, how to say it. Can you just say again the what was the topic about it?
The first was about feedback. How do you collect feedback?
Okay,
What are the tools
okay,
and strategies?
okay. So for the feedback, actually, I try to be close to the customers as much as possible to get their actual genuine feedback. So sometimes customers come pick up their orders. Sometimes they cannot put a specific address and for the driver to come and give them their order. So sometimes really they I meet them and they get their order from me. So really it's very genuine whenever you get to meet the person and talk with them, and whenever they meet the person behind all of this, it's like a shock for them. So at first they're shocked and then they behave naturally, and really they say whatever thing they are feeling, the good and the bad. For example, I had a comment, for example, about like doing sizes that are smaller, like XS. And I had the opposite as well, which were like big sizes. And they were mentioning like, please, we love the pieces, just do bigger sizes. We need to purchase them, but we need them. So that's what I took into consideration, for example, during the production of the second launch. I did smaller sizes and I did bigger sizes. I always listen to the community, and for the interaction, I used to do sometimes Q&As on Instagram. I used to always try to connect with them. Even I do after sales. I ask them about their honest opinion after they get their pieces, like just to make sure everything's good with them, they like it, the material, the fit, if they need to exchange. I just try to make it the best in the best way possible for them to be comfortable, to trust the brand. And actually, this is what is building step by step this trust that I'm seeing. And really, it's heartwarming when you see people that you never met start to really just behave with you. It's like you're their friend or like their sister. Like some of them even ask me like, what do you think? Would this fit me? Which color do you think I should pick? So it's so sweet. It's very much genuine. So I really enjoy this process.
Okay, so maybe that will lead you to a new service on top of your current business. Thank you, Marielle.
Most
Um,
welcome.
Sarah's other question was regarding creating a community? And I think it's a very good question also. How do you keep generating public interest, and how you are developing, let's say, a collective opinion in terms of a community about your brand?
Actually, as I mentioned previously, I do Q&As. I sometimes I just open up the stories and I start chatting with everyone, like just ask whatever question you have and we'll answer it. Sometimes it's by collaborating with some influencer or like giving opportunities for like emerging models to just showcase their creativity and their creative direction. So it's I can do this in many ways, and as well as in pop-ups because since last summer I did two pop-ups, one during summer and one during Christmas, and I also have upcoming pop-up. But this creates really good connections with people. I met a lot of people during these pop-ups that they actually connected with the brand and even they were surprised about this. So this is very much genuine. And I think step by step during these things, events are very essential. Um, I think for LSDM, having online and meetings and events on site are also essential. This could help a lot. And just chit chat. Chit chat can help a lot and can go a long way, honestly.
Great, brilliant. Um, any other questions from the others listening in? Lisa, Lekha, Bethel, Yvonne. All right. If you don't have questions, of course, at the moment. But if you think of anything later, we've left Marielle's email in the chat. Of course, you can find her on the links which are there on the page at the moment as well. If there are no further questions, maybe we can close this in extremely insightful, extremely interesting a masterclass. Um, Marielle, thank you so much again for kindly giving us this opportunity to learn more about your brand, your approach, and of course, your mindset. And we wish all the best for you in your professional life. And we do hope to keep in touch. So
Thank
thank you
you
so
very
much.
much for the opportunity, and I'm very grateful for that. Thanks a lot. And of course, we'll stay in touch. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. See you. See you, everyone.
Bye.